Feminist perspective of international relations is a product of post-Cold War era. It demands a paradigm shift in the study of international relations. It claims that women are neglected in international politics, and in fact, they are not only neglected, they have been exploited in domestic and international level. They argue that the international has come to be characterized in the discipline of international relations as only the realm of high politics. High politics means use of power, and international relation is concerned with high politics among states and the actions of states, or we can say that actions of man who acts on behalf of states, and this has come to dominate the substance of relations. It is also said that the personal, which is political, is also international. Feminists try to demonstrate that gender relations are integral to international relations. It is said by them that wives of diplomats smoothen the operation of power relations among states and statesmen. Supermodels conquer foreign cultures and prepare them for the spread of Western capitalism. Women organize kitchens, churches, and communities so as to destabilize and overthrow authoritarian regimes, and thus they contribute to peaceful resolution of conflicts. Feminist perspectives further suggest that power does not necessarily come from military might only or from the perceptions of male world leaders. They also opine that male leaders' perceptions are faulty and unreliable. As we can see, that these opinions have been unable to anticipate the collapse of the Soviet Union. According to feminist perspective, international relations scholarship under the tutelage of male dominance has suffered from strict adherence to certain state-centric understanding of politics, which actually obstructs our ability to understand and recognize the changing political phenomena. Feminist scholars in the field of international relations have challenged the conventional knowledge in the field of international relation, and they have attacked at state-centric nature of the discipline of international relation. In fact, this challenge marks the beginning of a third debate, or which is also known as another debate, in which many feminist scholars attempted to deconstruct or subvert realism or mainstream perspective of international relation, which believes that the dominant feature of international relation is power politics. And this perspective, this mainstream perspective, was propagated after the Second World War and even after the end of Cold War. Feminists have argued that women's lives provide a more critical and comprehensive understanding of international relations in comparison to realist perspective. Cynthia Enloe Cynthia, Cynthia, Enloe, made a very significant contribution to the making of the feminist perspective. She proposed that feminist theorizing about international relations is closely related to transnational feminist organizing rooted in clear explanation of how women from different societies are a tool, an instrument to sustain the world system, which the feminists want to change. Further, we see that feminist thinkers may be divided into some categories. The first generation feminism is credited only with creating an awareness of the need for taking into account feminist perspective and integrate it into the general perspective of international relation theory. However, at this stage, no positive contribution in the form of enrichment of international theory can be seen. The next level of feminist theory, feminist perspective is known as second generation feminism, and the foundation of second generation feminism was prepared by the emotionalism of the first generation feminism. Second generation feminism is marked by an emerging body of very distinctive feminist scholarship, and it has sought to make gender a central analytic category in the study of foreign policy, security issues, and global political economy. Feminists of this generation have utilized the rich insights by critical international theory, especially constructivism. So we can see that feminist perspective is also an offshoot of critical theory. You must remember this. Now, in the second phase, all feminist analysis flows from the primary assumption which treats gender as the most important concept and the most crucial variable in international relation. Masculinity is associated with autonomy, sovereignty, and the capacity for reason and objectivity. This is what the mainstream perspective had so far been propagating. It also claimed that femininity is associated with the lack or absence of these characteristics, and this was called gender identity. On the one hand, we had some masculine qualities like autonomy, sovereignty, rationality, objectivity, whereas it was claimed that women lack these characteristics. So this was constructed as gender identity. Feminists argue that the boundaries of gender and the state have for a long time excluded women from domestic and international political life, and they have also treated international relations as the exclusive domain of men, where masculine characteristics only thrive, and the male have controlled and dominated women. Now, we can also argue that feminism is an outgrowth of the belief that Attributes like humility, peace, tenderness, compassion, forgiveness are all associated with women. And as these have been ignored in the traditional international relation scholarship, as such, the study of international relation has always remained focused on strife, conflict, war, anarchy, etc. And this study of international relation has missed the attributes like global peace, justice, and also the factor of emancipatory politics. Emancipatory politics, which was the focus, which has been the focus of critical theorists. By emphasizing the need for recognizing the misfortune of the inclusion of women on research agendas, feminism brings about an expansion of the notion of emancipatory politics. Further, a major element of this structure of international relation consists in the assertion that under the traditional methods of the study of international politics, the role of the 50% of the world's population, that is women, has been grossly neglected. Why it was neglected? It was neglected due to the false assumption and belief that male experiences can count for both men and women, and that women are either absent from international politics or even they are not relevant to global political processes. So we can see that again women have been termed as other. Internationally, women are a disadvantaged group, and they have been ignored for a very long time, although they form almost the 50% of the population of the world. They share 60% of the labor. However, their share in world's property and resources is mere 1%. However, we see that women are central to the survival of their families. They are also at the forefront of various social movements which have been aiming at peace, environmental balance. One example of this we can see in India also, in Chipko movement. Also, they are part of socio-economic justice. International processes and interactions often have causes and consequences that affect men and women quite differently. And this results in various kinds of discrimination against women. So, one of the major concerns of feminism is that international theorists should devote adequate attention to an analysis of the role of women in development. The feminist perspective questions the wisdom behind the gender-blind multilateral agencies like the World Bank that have taken men as the normative agents and distributors of development but have failed to take into consideration the very basic needs of developing countries. Development projects for women and by women contain very important lessons, and these need to be extended to the whole model of socio-economic development of a country. feminization of poverty, and gendered international division of labor is something about which we must think and we must worry. Feminist perspective suggests that feminist foreign policy analysis have opened new areas of policy making and foreign policy beliefs as for example women leaders are consistently more likely to oppose the use of force in international relations and are typically more supportive of humanitarian interventions. Women have inclination towards humanitarian intervention than on power, high politics, etc. Gender equality is a producer of pacific attitudes to international conflict. We must not forget that women are more likely to be among the group of non-state actors, the role of whom is widely recognized today in the sphere of international relation. Deborah Steenstra, Deborah, Deborah Steenstra, Stienstra. She notes that women have been organizing at the global level for almost 200 years. In more recent times, we can see that women have played key roles in international social movements, such as global movement to ban landmines, the campaign for nuclear disarmament, and also they have been opposing violence against women, and it has resulted in some action on the part of United Nations also in the form of CEDAW. We see this. CEDAW is Convention for Elimination of Domestic Violence Against Women. So, women have been at the center stage for a very long time, and they have not only played a role in these movements that we have discussed earlier, but they have also been part of supportive services for militarization. They have been there at the back of the armies, also playing different kinds of roles. They are soldiers as well as mothers of soldiers or wives of soldiers. They have been peace activists and revolutionary actors in national liberation struggles and civil wars. They not only fight but also suffer as refugees in large numbers, and in fact women are the worst sufferer of conflict and war. They face some such oppressions which are gender specific. They face sexual abuse, domestic violence, genital mutilation, rape, and forced sterilization and abortion. And we see that there has been growing sensitivity about all these sufferings faced by women. And the one example of this growing sensitivity is that rape is now considered a war crime under the Geneva Convention against War Crimes. Primary concern of feminism is to underline that only when women are recognized as fundamental players in economic and political process only then they will share an equal role in political decision making also. So they must be given an important role, fundamental role in economic and political processes of their countries or even at the international level, so that they come out of the private and become part of the public and play important role in political decision making. So, this reformulation or reconstruction of international relations, where women are given a fundamental role, is the requirement of the day. This is what feminist perspective believes. Notions of power, sovereignty, autonomy, anarchy, security, state, and the international system suffers from a gender bias because they are all identified with men's rather than women's experiences. We had already seen this. Now, if we examine the earlier theories, which we have done in our earlier slide also, so theories like realism and neorealism, which claim to describe or explain the reality of the world as it is, they in fact tend to justify the reality which is shaped by the males, and these mainstream perspectives are also responsible for the global hierarchies engendered by gender bias. Based on all these contentions, feminism implies some postulates. First of all, the feminist argument is the actual practice of world politics has suffered from a serious neglect of feminist perspectives. Second postulate, according to feminist perspective, is that mainstream visions, which feminists regard as male stream, M-A-L-E, male stream visions, they distort our knowledge of the existing relations and the ongoing transformation of the international politics. The third postulate is that these male stream perspectives define power over others, autonomy as reactive rather than as relational, international politics as the absence of women and the negation of domestic politics, and objectivity as the lack of feminized subjectivity. Feminists also contend that male-dominated perspectives render women and gender invisible. Women fail to play any role in international political system because of this male-dominated structure and perspective. Also, these mainstream or male stream perspectives ignore the political activities and activism of women. As a result of all this, international relations scholarship is termed as incomplete, biased, and lopsided by the feminist scholars. So, we see that feminist perspective demands a balanced role for both male and female in international politics. It demands that the feminine qualities should be added to the masculine qualities, because in a human being there are both feminine and masculine qualities. So studying international politics only on the basis of certain masculine characteristics is wrong. Creating gender identities is wrong. However, we must examine and critically examine the feminist perspective. Feminism only points a critical area, and thus it tries to become part of the critical theory, and it bases its assumptions, its postulates in emancipatory politics. We had earlier seen that emancipatory politics is the central focus of critical theorists. However, this perspective has not been able to establish its credentials as a theory because it has not suggested any alternative theory which we can place in the broad spectrum of international theories. It offers no such perspectives on the state or the state system or sovereignty or war or conflict or even use of force, as we expect to have emanated from the recognition of the role of women in world society at large. It also focuses only on one distinction, that is female, women. In fact, when we talk of feminism, we see that within this also there are certain disparities, like the problems of white women may not be the same as that of black women or of developing countries. So there are many more differences within feminism. One section of women may face different problems and the another a different set of problems. Like in Rajasthan, water is a big problem and women spend a lot of time in fetching water for household work, whereas for states like UP and Bihar and Madhya Pradesh also we can include, this problem is not faced by women. So in different areas women may have different problems. Also, we see the world which is divided by race, which is divided by religion, tribes, communities, etc. So there is not only the division on the basis of sex, and this has not been recognized by feminist scholars. Feminists denounce injustice to women and the neglect of their contribution in diverse fields of international relations. But they fail to point out how a recognition of the contribution of the women can help in a different or better understanding of international politics. So we can say that a mere denunciation of the neglect of the contribution of the women is not enough. There has to be given an alternative perspective also. Finally, we can say that feminism only condemns the neglect of the contribution of women, and it offers no alternative explanation or even a basis for such explanations which should be formulated by others. So we can say that feminism is more like a movement and less like a theory. As such, feminist perspective needs to be developed more.